Hi guys, welcome back. Let's do together the recap of lesson 29. This is already the penultimate lesson of level A2. We're almost at the end of this course. I hope you've learned a lot. Today what I'd like to do is just the vocabulary of today's dialogue together for pronunciation practice. Then what we could do is just a bit more of phonetic transcription together. If at this point you are slightly more interested in IPA, so the International Phonetic Alphabet, I will point you towards the videos that I have already made, and that will teach you everything you need to know in I think I made about 10 videos. So if at this point you feel comfortable transcribing, just so as to remember the correct pronunciation of words, then I highly recommend you take a look. So we're going to play with that with a few difficult words which seem very, very alike when written, but when pronounced are very, very different. So we're going to do that, and then we'll do a grammar review as usual, just to run through your grammar point of the day, which happens to be the verb to have in the simple past or past simple. So let's get started. So let's start off with the vocabulary list, which I've taken from today's dialogue. So just repeat after me or take notes or try and transcribe the word phonetically. I'm sure at this point you've developed your own strategies, your own techniques. So do as you wish, but I always recommend, if you still haven't embraced this habit of mine, which is to transcribe words phonetically, please give it a go, because I know that it can sometimes be confusing, because then you're tempted to write the word phonetically and no longer how it is supposed to be spelt. So I know that it can be confusing, but long term you will see the benefits. So let's start off with the word to deserve. So here you'll see the phonetic transcription. A compliment, lucky, to explain. Now here you can say to explain something, but if there's another person involved, if you want to say I'm going to explain this, so this something, I'm going to explain this to someone. So if there's someone involved in that sentence, you have to add the preposition. And this common mistake has been highlighted in the dialogue. One of the characters actually makes that mistake and gets corrected. So please practice that, make some sentences, write them down. Could you explain that to me? Could you explain this to me? Could you explain this grammar point to me? He explained that to him, and so on. Just really practice. I know it sounds repetitive and maybe boring, but it's a mistake that we hear a lot, so do try and avoid it. Before we move on to pronunciation, I would like to incorporate a new element in today's recap, which is the word, so it has two pronunciations, so you can choose. You can call it a homophone or a homophone. Now, essentially, it's just words that sound the same. So they have the same pronunciation, identical pronunciation, but they can have a very different spelling, a different origin, and generally a different meaning. So today's lesson comprises one word, which is patience. So to have patience, are you a patient person? So patience. And I'm bringing this up because sometimes I use the dictation on my computer, so the auto dictate, and it gets confused with this kind of word. So for example, patience sounds exactly the same as patient in plural form, so patience. So we're going to run through a list of homophones or homophones together now, just so that you realise how many words we've already learned together in these 29 lessons, and how many of them can be confusing when writing because they sound exactly the same. So the first one that we've seen is ad. So an ad, as in an advert, an advertisement, AD, can be confused with the verb to add, ADD. The preposition for, FOR, can be very easily confused when writing with the number for, FOUR. We've seen the verb to eat, which in past simple is ate, ATE, easily confused with ate, the number, EIGHT. We've seen the verb to buy, BUI, which is easily confused with two other words, which are buy, BY, the preposition, and buy for bye-bye, BYE. You've also seen the word hour, H-O-U-R, which you can easily confuse with our, O-U-R, which is the possessive determiner, the possessive adjective, which we've also seen together. The personal pronoun subject, I, can easily be confused with I, E-Y-E. The verb to know, K-N-O-W, easily confused with N-O, know. You've got the word right, R-I-G-H-T, that you can confuse with right, W-R-I-T-E. If at this point in this exercise you're not completely comfortable with spelling words aloud like this, I recommend that you go over the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, and so on. The confusing, I think, letters for people are still the vowels, A, E, I, O, U. So this may seem childish, but what you can start off by doing is just reading the alphabet out loud, just practicing them, then spelling your name, just practicing that, and then just taking random words until you are 100% certain that you can spell a word. I think that's so important. I know that those are these things that we take for granted. It's like, oh, well, what's your email address? And it's like, how do we say at? How do we say Gmail? So is it G-M-A-A? Oh, what's the other one? I-L maybe? Dot? Is it punto? What's dot? Punt? No, it's dot. So just really practice all these things because it's a good way of reviewing spelling, it's a good way of reviewing punctuation, and just making sure that you know all the letters of the alphabet, because at this point you should know it. But I know it's not something that we've focused on particularly, so do spend some extra time working on that by yourself. So let's carry on now with the list of commonly confused words, just because they sound the same. So let's look at some more. This one I already pointed out once, but I actually didn't tell you that they were called homophones or homophones. So we saw this before. It's there, as in they are, there. Then we had there, which is the possessive. And then we had there, as in the demonstrative. So those three are quite common, and even English people, I think, misspell them when texting, in haste, or writing a comment under a video. They're focusing more on the content and they make spelling mistakes. So that's quite common. And then some more. We have to, so T-O, to T-O-O, and then we've got the number T-W-O. So don't confuse them all. So this one we've seen, whose. We've seen the relative pronoun, and it's also a question word, so an interrogative pronoun. Whose, so W-H-O-S-E, to not be confused with whose, apostrophe S. So who is, who's this, who is this, and whose is this. So here I'm writing down those examples, practice them. And finally, there's another one which I often see misspelt, once again in comments and so on, your and your. So you are with the apostrophe, your, and your as in the possessive, your dog, okay? So now let's carry on with more vocabulary which I found in today's dialogue, and funnily enough is related to pronunciation. So let's read these words out loud together. Let's really focus on not only enunciation but also stress pattern, really focusing on the right syllable, the right sound in each word. A sound, phonetic, phonetics. To correspond, a symbol, a letter. Spelling, different to. Now here, as promised in previous videos, I would like to highlight the difference between British English, so that would be different to, and American English. In America they say different from. So here once again choose, it is different to this, it is different than this. British English, American English. Similar to, a poem. In front of. Now let's run through these words that look very similar but are pronounced very differently. So here I'm going to insist once again on the phonetic transcription or a variation. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to help you remember the correct pronunciation of each of these words. So let's start off with this one. I'm going to be quite cheeky here. I'm going to let the word appear, leave a second or two, Then I will pronounce the word and the phonetic transcription will then appear. This one is though, through, thorough. Now here in the States, they pronounce this word thorough. So some British people, and even sometimes myself, we pronounce this word thorough because we're influenced by the American culture. But in England, for example, we would say thorough. So here you can say thorough or thorough. Throughout, thought, trough, tough. I hope you enjoyed that exercise. It's quite good fun. If you want, write them down, mix it up. First of all, of course, check the definitions. It's not just phonetics, try and link it to the meaning, maybe with an illustration, a picture, or just a definition, or even translation. I know that we're at a point now where we can't just learn words in context. I do highly encourage you to translate and say, okay, what's this in my language? Okay, done. And then you actually memorize it sometimes quicker. And then use that English word in an English sentence, of course. So first of all, recognize it, know how it's pronounced, know the meaning, know its translation, and then start using it in sentences. Now let's move on to the grammar review of today, which is the verb to have in the simple past. I'm just going to give you a handful of sentences here. Please complete it with the correct form of have in the simple past, which we know is had. So it's just really to familiarize yourself more with the adverbs or the time expressions which work with the simple past. It's not so much for you to learn how to conjugate the verb because, as I said before, it's just had, so it's quite straightforward. So just repeat the sentences to get used to hearing that tense with these time expressions. Last year, I had a long holiday. Last week, we had 2 English classes. We had class together last time. Last Wednesday, I had an English class. When she was a teenager, she had a dog. When he was 21, he had a car. Yesterday, I had the day off. That's it for today, guys. I'll see you next time in our next recap video. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Please apply all the strategies, all the tips that I gave you, and I look forward to seeing you soon in our next recap video. Bye-bye.